Today we're going to look at Schoolboy versus Denis Cyplenkov. This is a recent practice pull. It happened a few days ago, and I found it to be pretty interesting. I was pretty impressed with Schoolboy, although of course Denis is not at his peak form right now, but we still see that Schoolboy is able to get one pin, which I think considering his level is pretty impressive. So on the very first ready go, we see pretty much what tends to happen with Denis. Whenever Denis loses, it is normally because his opponent is able to go up and over the top of him. So Schoolboy is using a decent amount of drag, but notice how his index knuckle, his thumb, is still significantly higher than the median height of Denis's hands, and he does end up kind of rotating over the top. So he still has quite a bit of drag, but he has just enough height, just enough ability to punch over the top of Denis's hand that he is avoiding having to fight with the majority of Denis's power, which is his elbow flexor. Denis's elbow flexor is still one of the strongest in the world, even if he's not currently at peak, and Schoolboy needs to avoid fighting with this. But this is all about to change, and on the second ready go, we see just a little bit of a stop here, and notice how Denis is able to drag a little bit more. He's able to get out the back of Schoolboy's hand, and he's just slightly able to challenge for height. And notice as soon as Schoolboy gets right down to the pad, it's very subtle, but you can see his wrist cracks back just a tiny little bit right here. His wrist goes back just a little bit, and that's because Denis is finally able to find a spot where he can use that back pressure and apply it through his thumb and actually attack Schoolboy's hand. This is partly because Schoolboy is getting pretty stretched out, his elbow's at the back of the pad, and he's not really being able to post up over the top anymore, and it may also be that Denis was just dragging a little bit harder. But whatever the reason is, we see that Schoolboy more and more so is losing his ability to challenge for height. So initially, perhaps there's a lot more straight up pressure through this top knuckle. But what we're going to see as this match goes on is that the roles reverse more and more to where Denis is actually putting a lot of up pressure into Schoolboy's hand, and Schoolboy is forced to counter this by doing more of a lat drag down pressure or more of a straight back pressure instead of a vertical pressure that will allow him to go up and over the top. Now he is having to fight the fullness of Denis's back pressure, and you can see on that second hit how big of a difference that makes. Now, as he tries to apply down pressure, he's going to lose his wrist when that happens. This is hugely advantageous for Denis, and it's just going to get worse and worse, and from this view, you can see it even more so. Notice how now when Schoolboy drives, it's a lot of down pressure, it's a lot of lat drag pressure kind of in this direction, and you can just see the pressure Denis is putting is directly into Schoolboy's fingers, so it's more in this plane or in this vector right here. So the tides have completely turned. Everything is shifted to where now Schoolboy is the one trying to hold on. You can see his fingers bunching up as he tries to hold on to Denis's up pressure. He is unable to do this. This is also giving Denis access again to his cup because now Schoolboy is the one holding on, and things are just going to get worse and worse for Schoolboy here. Once Denis gets access to his back pressure, it's probably going to be all over for his opponents. If his opponent can post over the top and never give Denis access to that pressure, that's a different story. That's very similar to what we saw Zaur Paizulaev do when they were practicing, very similar to what we saw Devin Larratt do against Denis, where Denis just never really got access to his back pressure. But as we can see right here, as soon as Denis does gain access to that pressure, it's going to be extremely difficult to do anything. And there's one more go I want to look at, and this is when we see Schoolboy attempt to force the match into a hook. And the reason this is interesting is because at first Schoolboy was trying to prevent Denis from getting access to that back pressure, but in this go, he basically just gifts it to him right off the go, and we see him crashing down. He's crashing down right onto Denis's elbow flexor. And notice how there is no way Denis is going to get pinned here. This is such a stronger position for Denis because he has immediate access to that world-class elbow flexor. Schoolboy realizes this immediately, and when he even gets close to any kind of pin or any kind of lane, he's actually pulling back once again. He realizes that there's no way he's going to crash down onto Denis's bicep and find success in that lane, and we see the same thing once again. Once Denis has access to put up pressure into his opponent's fingertips, it is just totally over. So let me know what you guys think about this. I was very impressed that Schoolboy was able to get a pin. Of course, Denis is not at his peak performance, but I did find this kind of flow of events to be pretty telling to demonstrate what you need to do if you're going to have a chance against Denis. You have to go up and over the top of him. As soon as you give him access to attack your fingertips with that up pressure, there might not be anyone on the planet who can do anything to Denis at that point. Hopefully we see Denis back in action against Hermes or against somebody in the coming months.